How to do laundry while protecting yourself from coronavirus. It's an understatement to say that the coronavirus pandemic has completely thrown a wrench into our lives. It's forced us to re-strategize and change how we go about pretty much every single day-to-day task, including something as simple as doing laundry. Some people are lucky enough to have their own washing machine and dryer in their homes. Many others, myself included, have to rely on shared laundry facilities, like a local laundromat or the laundry room in the basement of an apartment building. That means doing laundry involves leaving our homes, spending time with other people in a typically cramped space, and touching machines that many others have touched before us. With all the talk about COVID-19 transmission and social distancing guidelines, it's tough to figure out the right way to drag your clothes, towels, and linens to these spaces and safely wash and dry them. What are the risks involved? How can you be as prepared as possible? And how can you try not to bring the virus back into your home with you if you encounter it while out in the world? For starters, here's a quick refresher on how COVID-19 spreads. There's a strong consensus that far and away the most common way you catch this virus is by being in close proximity to a person that is infected. John Swartzberg, MD, infectious disease doctor and clinical professor emeritus at UC Berkeley's School of Public Health, tells Self. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), when someone with the infection coughs, sneezes, or talks, they spread respiratory droplets into the air, potentially around 6 feet away. These can get into your system and make you sick if they land on your nose or mouth or if you inhale them. Experts also believe that it may be possible to catch the virus from touching a surface that has the virus on it. Touching contaminated surfaces is not the main way this spreads, but it is a risk. Joshua G. Petrie, Ph.D., MPH, research assistant professor in the Department of Epidemiology at the University of Michigan School of Public Health, tells Self. It's still not clear how long SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes this disease, remains active and infectious on surfaces or how many viral particles would need to be present to actually infect someone, but experts are still recommending caution until we know the details. All this is to say that keeping a suggested 6 foot, or more, distance from people outside your household is the best thing you can do to protect yourself and others. The next best lines of defense include washing your hands frequently, especially after touching things other people have touched, and avoiding touching your face, specifically your mouth, nose, and eyes. How does this all factor into doing laundry, in particular? We looked at the CDC recommendations and spoke with germ scientists and infectious disease doctors to find out the best ways to stay safe in a shared laundry space and how to make sure you're washing your clothes properly to avoid getting the new coronavirus. 1. Wear a cloth face covering. The latest CDC recommendations say that everyone, even those who are seemingly healthy, should wear some sort of homemade cloth mask whenever they're going to be in a public setting where social distancing might be difficult. A laundromat or shared laundry room would certainly be one of those places. The CDC's reasoning is that, according to emerging data, more than 50% of people with the coronavirus seem to be asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic at some point during their illness, meaning they can actively spread the infection without seeming sick at all. While homemade face masks aren't perfect, they can at least help reduce the sheer number of droplets that people put out into the environment when they talk, cough, and sneeze, lowering their risk of infecting others. Here's what you need to know to make sure you're wearing a mask the right way to reduce your odds of getting, or spreading, this disease. 2. Avoid doing laundry during popular times. The usual social distancing rules apply when you're doing laundry. You want to keep that distance. Peter Rayner, Ph.D., environmental health professor at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health and director of the Industrial Hygiene Program, tells Self. That can be hard, since laundromats and communal laundry rooms are typically small and the machines are packed closely together. If your shared laundry space hasn't put a limit on the number of people that can come in at one time, try to save doing laundry for off-peak hours. If you're working from home and get a full lunch break, consider doing it then. If you're an early bird or a night owl, maybe opt for the time that you're usually up before or after everyone else. Depending on how close the laundry facility is to your home, you might even decide to turn around and save laundry for another time if you see more people in there than you feel comfortable with. 3. Wipe down machines before you use them if you can. It's not a bad idea to use a disinfecting wipe to wipe down the parts of any machines before you touch them, even including the laundry card machine if you use one. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency (EPA) has put out a list of products that seem to be pretty effective at killing SARS-CoV-2. Again, experts don't think that contact with contaminated surfaces is the primary way this virus spreads, but it's always best to err on the side of caution as long as it's not sucking up all of your time or making you really anxious. A lot of us do touch our faces unconsciously. Think about brushing your hair out of your eyes as you bend over to load stuff into the dryer, so disinfecting wipes are a nice extra precaution if you're lucky enough to actually have them right now. If it makes you feel better, you can even wipe down your laundry basket after putting the dirty clothes in the washer, or, if you can wash your hamper, toss it right in there with the clothes. But, the experts say, this isn't really necessary since contact with contaminated surfaces doesn't seem to be the main mode of transmission. If you don't have wipes, that's okay. As long as you remember to not touch your face and to wash your hands as soon as you get home, you don't need to stress about wiping down everything in sight. Here are the 5 important steps to follow every single time you wash your hands, and here are some helpful tips for avoiding touching your face right now. And if you can't wash your hands? We have some advice for that below. 4. Use the hottest settings your clothes can tolerate. There isn't really any good data on how long the virus that causes COVID-19 lasts on items like clothing and linens, says Rayner, which means we can't yet totally rule this out as a potential mode of transmission, though, remember, respiratory droplets are the primary way this thing spreads. The CDC suggests washing clothing, towels, and linens using the warmest appropriate settings, according to the manufacturer's instructions, and drying everything completely. Rayner says there's no need to wash clothes on such a hot setting that it ruins them. Between washing and drying, there should be sufficient heat to kill the virus. Detergent does a good job here too. The nice thing about this virus, if we can say anything nice, is it's got this lipid, or fat, envelope protecting it, and that makes it very susceptible to disinfectants, including soap, says Dr. Schwartzberg. So it's pretty easy to kill this. That's why the CDC simply suggests washing your hands with regular old soap and water for 20 seconds to effectively get rid of the virus. Rayner adds that hand towels and washcloths are probably the most likely objects you'll wash that might contain the virus, especially if multiple people in one household are using the same ones. That doesn't change how you should wash them, but it does mean that it's maybe worth washing them more regularly than you did pre-pandemic, if possible. 5. Don't hang around in between wash and dry cycles. It may feel weird to leave your laundry unattended, but the truth is that limiting your time in the laundromat or laundry room is probably the most protective thing you can do, says Rayner. Exposure is a combination of the amount of virus that may be in the environment and the time you're exposed. So limiting the time is part of that equation. Set a timer when you put your clothes in the washer or dryer so that you know when to come back for them. In the meantime, if you can, head back to your home to wait. If you can't, make sure wherever you decide to kill time is conducive to proper social distancing. On a similar note, Rayner suggests showing up to the laundry room with your clothes already separated and ready to go so you don't have to spend extra time divvying them up while you're potentially around other people. 6. Wash or sanitize your hands once you've left the space. If you can wash your hands once you're done in your shared laundry space, you should, Rayner says. If you can't, like if you absolutely have to wait around to switch your stuff to the dryer, use hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol, which is the lowest level necessary for it to be effective. Make sure to follow the instructions on the hand sanitizer so you can squeeze out as much protection as possible. That will likely involve using a certain amount and letting it dry instead of wiping some off on your leggings while your hands are still wet. 7. Fold your clothes at home. A lot of people like to fold laundry in the laundromat or laundry room. It makes sense to fold everything when it's fresh, so it doesn't have a chance to wrinkle. But it's not the best option when you're trying to limit time spent in public spaces. Rayner's advice: take your laundry and fold it at home, and accept some wrinkling. In a time when many of us only ever see other people over Zoom or FaceTime, does it really matter? Chances are no one's going to care about, or, let's be honest, even notice, a couple of wrinkles. Generally, try to give yourself a break from shoulds during this pandemic, including, I should have completely wrinkle-free clothes right now. 8. Don't wear gloves unless someone in your home has COVID-19. Experts suggest that, for the average person, wearing disposable gloves won't offer any additional protection at best and can give us a false sense of security at worst. The reason is that you have to change them after you touch anything new for them to be effective, Petrie says. And if you don't remove them properly, you can end up exposing yourself to the virus anyway and then think you don't need to wash your hands because you had gloves on. One time that gloves are recommended, though, is if you're washing clothes or items that a person who has COVID-19 has worn or used. In that case, the CDC suggests wearing disposable gloves. Put on the gloves before loading that laundry into the washing machine, Petrie says, then take them off, throw them away, and wash your hands to be safe. You don't need to worry about gloves when you switch the clothes into the dryer, since they've already been washed. For extra safety, you can also use gloves to handle your laundry if you're a healthcare worker or other frontline worker interacting directly with sick people. 9. Take a few other precautions when handling a sick person's laundry. As long as you're following the other best practices above, it's okay to put a sick person's clothes into the washer with other items, according to the CDC. But there are a few other precautions the organization recommends taking if you're handling a sick person's laundry. According to the experts, it's a good idea to also follow these tips if you're a healthcare worker or otherwise on the front lines. First, it's a good idea to wash or wipe down your laundry basket if it's held items that a sick person was using, Rayner says. For hard surfaces, like plastic, use an EPA-approved disinfecting product or a diluted bleach solution. The CDC provides instructions for how to make one. Just make sure the material can handle it, and always follow the instructions for whatever cleaner you choose to make sure you're disinfecting properly. If your hamper can be washed, throw in with the rest of your items, Rayner suggests. Then you have a clean container you can use to carry your clean clothes home. You also want to avoid shaking out clothes or any other items that a sick person has used. Rayner says we don't really have any information on what, if anything, would happen if you shook something with SARS-CoV-2 on it. Would the virus fly into the air? Would it be infectious? Experts aren't sure. Still, it's best to be cautious just in case.